7-year-old twins disappear every morning at exactly 8 a.m. For 2 weeks, Kevin Smith watched them beg for food outside a corner store, their torn purple sweaters and duct-tape shoes telling a story no one wanted to hear. Today, he decided to follow them. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared him for where they were going, or the choice they had made that would shatter everything he thought he knew about survival, love, and the promises we keep. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The rain hadn't stopped since dawn, and Kevin Smith sat in his car, engine running, watching two small figures through his windshield. The twins couldn't have been more than 7 years old, standing under that same corner store awning on Birch Street where he'd seen them every morning for the past 2 weeks. "Please, can you spare some food?" Their voices barely carried over the rain, but Kevin had heard those words enough times now that they echoed in his head even when he was miles away. The taller one, Haley, she told him her name was Haley, always spoke first. Her sister Harper, distinguishable only by a small birthmark on her left cheek, would nod along, clutching a plastic bag that held whatever kindness strangers had offered that day. Kevin checked his watch. 7:58 a.m. In 2 minutes, they would leave. They always left at exactly 8 a.m. No matter how much or how little they'd collected. He tested this theory for 3 days straight now, and they were never a minute off. Where did 2 7-year-old girls need to be so punctually? Today, he was going to find out.
The past 2 weeks flashed through his mind as he watched them pack up their meager belongings. That first Thursday morning when he'd seen them, something had broken inside him. Maybe it was the way the taller twin had reached for the breakfast sandwich he'd offered, then pulled her hand back, asking in a whisper that still haunted him, "Both sandwiches? Really?" Or maybe it was because his own son Jeremy was only 2 years older, safe at school right now, worried about nothing more serious than his upcoming soccer game. "Thank you," the twins said in perfect unison to an elderly woman who had just handed them a dollar bill. They bowed their heads slightly, a practiced gesture that spoke of desperation wrapped in dignity. 8 a.m. Like clockwork, the twins turned and began walking. Kevin shifted his car into drive and followed at a distance, his heart pounding with each turn they took. They moved with purpose, never hesitating at corners, never looking back. These children knew exactly where they were going. They walked for 15 minutes, and with each block, the landscape changed. The quaint shops and cafes of the commercial district gave way to boarded-up windows and graffiti-covered walls. This was the part of the city Kevin never visited, the part people discussed in hushed tones at PTA meetings, the part where abandoned buildings outnumbered occupied ones. The twins slipped through a gap in a chain-link fence with the fluid motion of those who had done this hundreds of times before. The fence surrounded what used to be the Riverside Textile Factory. Kevin remembered reading about its closure in the paper 5 years ago, 300 jobs lost overnight. He parked his car and sat for a moment, rain drumming on the roof. What was he doing? Following 2 little girls into an abandoned building?
But then he thought of their torn purple sweaters, the same ones they'd worn every single day. He thought of how they divided that single sandwich he'd given them this morning, carefully tearing it in half, then tearing one half in half again. Kevin got out of the car, rain immediately soaking through his jacket. The gap in the fence was narrow, built for small bodies, not a 35-year-old bookstore manager. He squeezed through, metal scratching against his back, and found himself in an overgrown courtyard. The factory loomed before him, 5 stories of broken windows and crumbling brick. He could hear voices now, young voices, echoing from somewhere inside. Following the sound, he stepped through a doorway that had long since lost its door. The interior was a maze of debris and shadows. Water dripped from holes in the ceiling, creating pools that reflected what little light filtered through the broken windows. The voices grew stronger, and Kevin recognized Harper's distinctive lisp as she said something about being hungry. "I know your stomach hurts, mine too. But we have to be smart, remember? Like Mama taught us." That was Haley's voice, trying so hard to sound grown up, trying so hard to be strong. Kevin rounded a corner and stopped breathing. In what must have been an old office, the twins had created a home. No, created was too simple a word.
They had carved out a sanctuary from nothing, built a life from scraps society had thrown away. Cardboard covered the floor in neat sections, each piece overlapping the next to create a barrier against the cold concrete. Blankets, a patchwork of different colors and fabrics, clearly scavenged from various sources, were folded with military precision in one corner. Empty cans and bottles, cleaned until they shone, lined a wooden plank balanced on cinder blocks that served as a shelf.
But it was the walls that made Kevin's chest tighten. Dozens of drawings covered every available surface. Childish sketches of houses with smoke curling from chimneys, families holding hands under rainbow skies, sons with smiling faces. And in every single drawing, two small figures stood side by side, their hands clasped together. What the twins were doing in that moment, though, shattered something inside Kevin. They had taken the breakfast he'd given them that morning, 2 sandwiches, chocolate milk, and fruit cups, and divided it into 3 portions. Not 2, 3. 2 portions on paper plates for themselves, each heartbreakingly small. The third portion, the largest, was being carefully wrapped in plastic. "We should save more for tomorrow," Haley was saying, her small hands trembling slightly as she wrapped the food. "Just in case the nice man doesn't come." "But I'm so hungry," Harper replied, and Kevin could see her pressing her hand against her stomach. "I know, but remember what Mama said? We have to think about tomorrow. Always tomorrow." Kevin must have made a sound, a gasp, a sob, he wasn't sure, because both girls spun around. Terror flashed across their faces. Harper grabbed a broken broom handle while Haley stepped protectively in front of their supplies, in front of her sister. "It's just me," Kevin said quickly, holding up his hands, his voice cracking. "It's Mr. Kevin. I brought you breakfast, remember?" Recognition dawned slowly, but the fear didn't entirely leave their eyes. These children had learned to be afraid of adults, of discovery, of help that came with conditions. "You followed us," Haley said, and in her voice was the accusation of every broken promise they'd ever heard. "You're going to call the police. You're going to separate us." "No," Kevin said, and he did something that surprised even himself. He sat down right there on the cardboard floor, making himself smaller, less threatening.
"I'm not calling anyone. I was worried about you." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the drip of water from the ceiling and the distant sound of traffic from the world outside their hidden sanctuary. "Where are your parents?" Kevin finally asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The twins looked at each other, that silent communication that only comes from sharing everything, including tragedy. Harper's hand found Haley's, their fingers interlacing with practiced ease. "Heaven," Harper whispered. "Mama went to heaven." "When?" Kevin asked, his voice gentle as rain. "Winter," Haley said, and Kevin could see her counting on her fingers. 3 months and 11 days ago." 3 months. These 7-year-old children had been living alone in an abandoned factory for 3 months. "She got sick," Harper continued, her voice so small Kevin had to lean forward to hear. There was blood. We tried to get help, but the hospital said we needed insurance, and Mama didn't have any. She said it was okay, that she just needed rest. But then, one morning, she didn't wake up," Haley finished, tears rolling down her cheeks, leaving clean tracks through the dirt. Kevin's own eyes burned with tears. "What did you do?" "We called 911 from the payphone," Haley said. "We watched from across the street when they came. They took Mama away. We heard them saying they would call child services, that they needed to find us. So we hid, because Mama told us what happens to kids with no family. They get separated, different homes, different families. She made us promise to stay together always."
"So we stay together,"
Haley said with a fierceness that belonged to someone 3 times her age. "We take care of each other. I read to Harper from the books we found. She counts our money and makes sure we have enough for water. We wash